Вот это и есть он самый, так да. Да, это делаю уже, я говорю, да. Очень здорово, очень вкусненько. Табака.
Как попало, видишь? Пережаривать. Ну ладно, хоть даже
Ну, наоборот, значит, не знаю. Родные мамы подходят.
Ну да. Вот, ну надо. Чтобы за них все делали, чтобы их делали просто. Наверное, да.
Сейчас идет он. И спит капец. Эй! Ох ты. Ну что поделаешь теперь? Ну да, да, согласен. Ладно. Да, тоже так. Да, экономия. Пространство. Пространство. Эх, оскорбил, да, действительно, да. Наоборот, да, да, понимаю. Я же понимаю. Это что такое? Да, да. Что, жизнь, наверное, все, да. Ладно. Шоу. Ничего. Да, да, да. Вот это. Вот как. М? Да-да, вот это. Да-да, да. Да. Так да, да. Мгм. Безработный, безработный. Да, да. Ой, да не надо, вы что? Что? Просто у меня тут такой не жизнь, а формат. Так. Да, случайно. Да, да. Изверг. Да, 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 вот это он и говорил. Да, издевательство. Вот это и глум сам, да, да. Нет, что вы, да, ну ладно. Хорошо? Да, да. Да, это не знаю, чисто случайно. Да, проект. Да, так. Да. Ну скажешь тоже. Так, да, понимаешь. Да, да. Мгм. Мгм. Ценой какой-то, ценой запутанной. Да. Она не функционирует, а? Да. Подумать. Прям туда, да, преподаватель. Да. 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 Да, вот это я тоже помню. Ну, все, да, понятно. Да. Да. Кто сказал? Да. Ну. Ну. Видимо. Да. Ладно, боишься. Ну ладно, вы правы, я дурак. Я виноват. наоборот только, да. Ладно, я понимаю. Чё? Ничего, ничего. Ну да. Грустно, что пригодится. Есть какая-то философия света? Да. Да. Не знаю, да, да. Всем назад только. Чё? Что это будет? Ну, ладно. Звука нет. Ну нет, наоборот, значит, да, да.
here's an exciting, vibrant score, and once again, sometimes we have a situation where there is, where a supporter at a higher level is only able to do the first section, and it doesn't really matter because it's just, in this case, I'm going to give you some more time, Scott, and also it's just, there's so much to talk about and so many great things in this score that it's really going to keep me on my toes. Okay, so let's talk about those evaluation criteria. All right, so as far as there being kind of a limited amount of pitches, the pitch weight being in the upper middle register in the original piano score, that's not a big concern, right? You have made this kind of a full-bodied orchestration, similar to Martin Sebastian Smith's entry that I evaluated last week. Okay, but there is, I don't know, it's a concern. I'm not going to say that it's a problem, but there is a bit of a concern with the similarity between phrases, right? That's something that I was making as a criteria for the evaluation, just because, like, do you want to do the same thing more or less twice? Now here, there's a little bit of variation in your horn and trumpet scoring, a little bit of variation in the lower heavy brass from time to time. But generally speaking, it's a similar approach both times. And then for the second phrase of each group of 8, you know, that it's similar. It's not identical, obviously, because the parts aren't identical in the piano score. All right, so I would just say, if you were going to come back to this and you make it more of a serious thing, think about what you could possibly do to vary it a little bit, just so that it isn't so much copy paste. I mean, I don't want. That's kind of a brutal thing to say, because you do have slight variations between the two parts, but the variations are not really enough to be, you know, to make any change to the listener, right? Okay. Now, the question of the accompaniment figures covering a wide range, you have more or less solved. I mean, this is a pretty high leap up here in the violas, but it's not that big of a deal, really. And so, like here, you drop back down to the B, right? Which is a lot easier on your cellos. Now, the whole question, though, of the melodic development soaring quite high, as I mentioned in previous scores by now, this kind of stuff is playable with really good string players. The whole concern is whether or not it is going to be shrieky, right? That is, and then the same thing here. But here, what is really cool is how you run up to D and then you just let the overtones do the work by jumping down and hitting this E an octave lower. So that is a nice way of fooling the ear into thinking that something has happened there, right? And there are ways of using piccolo, as you might have seen in other entries and in my own orchestrating FIA lessons, where I take apart my orchestration and explain why I did certain things and so on. Okay, so that doesn't mean that everything is perfect with these two concerns about the melodic development going high, the accompaniment figures covering a wide range. This is probably not going to work right in here. You know, just in general, I mean, it's not a big problem to go E, B, B, you know, and then A, D, A, D, B, but this is really more of a flute part, right? It just is so much more opportune for a flute player to play this, so much easier on them. And then you get to hear, and this is just really not very likely. I mean, it's playable by a really, really good oboe player in terms of getting this perfect, but it's still just so much work, you know. And then, like, once again, you're going up to F and then E and so on, and it's very exposed. So I would say, look, just give the flute-like stuff to the flute player, right? And don't necessarily count on that very, very thin sound that's hard to control for the oboe as just coming off really perfectly. I mean, there's a bit of a
Ой, нет, это там не то
parallel
было еще
here
раз, да.
with
Ой, да.
horn
Нет,
players,
это
you
было
know,
вообще просто
cracking high
нет.
notes, right? It's
Да,
something
я так
same
подумал
exact
просто, ну, нет,
thing
нет.
that's going wrong.
Я понял уже.
But it is a question of embouchure, and it is a question of the tightening of the sound picture and everything else as you get higher and higher on an instrument like that. In general, you are scoring your oboes pretty high with abandon, and higher than flutes, right? Like, look at this, you've got this F sharp and G sharp, right? Why couldn't this be A2 oboes and then have your flutes play this, right? Or why couldn't, say, maybe this be A2 oboes and this be flutes, and then this G sharp and this D be flute notes and this be an A2 oboe note? You know what I mean? Like, maybe there's a way of juggling some of these pitches so that they are more playable by the instruments that are involved. Now, you've got that similar doubling line with the cello. This would be playable by trombone. I think that it would be better in these situations with really, really agile kinds of lines to really have a single trombonist playing. And that is not because two trombonists sound funny when they try to play lines like this. Not at all, but it's just that I think it has a better, more profound effect. And especially when you are, you've got like bassoon involved as well and so on. Like, if you got your first bassoon player playing this, it's going to be a better balance with your trombone player, right? Working together. Yeah, and just like this, B, D, A, jump up to F, and then play B. That's just better as a single trombone player. Yeah, so I'm looking at this and I am kind of noting how you have got your horns in C. Okay, so I mean, pretty much the scoring is fine, except for this little thing happening right here. You're jumping up to a high written C, right, and then back down to this note right here, which is going to be F sharp at the top of the staff. So that's like a, and you're getting there from E below the staff. So you're going E, jump up to high C, and then down to F sharp. And I just feel, look, this is a trumpet. This is a trumpet part. You're giving it to your horn player. You're making his life hell, right? So, or her life hell. So, just, score it for the right instrument. Give this to the flutes, give that to the first trumpet, and everything will fall into place a whole lot better for you, okay? Just watch out for that kind of thing. Okay, now, back to our evaluation criteria. We had the problem of the upper middle register continuing on, being relentless. If there was no textural contrast, that is not a big problem. Okay, but it brings up this other issue, okay? And that is reusing certain functions in certain prominent instruments. So, right here, you have A3 trumpets playing this da-da-da-da-da, ba-da-da-da-da part. And, pretty strongly. Okay, so once again, we've got these high agile playing, and you've written it A2. I just really feel it's better as a single trombone. Okay, but back to this. So you've got A3 scoring, and I feel that this works terrifically well. If I were going to work with you on editing this and whatever, I would actually say, you know, I'm going to make some suggestions about how the trumpet is working and so on. I would say don't change this. That is really, really a cool idea to have this kind of insane R3 playing. I think that works really, that works great. You know, it's so full and it's so rich and it's so so cutting, so effective, and I'll talk a little bit more about it on the next page. But you know, do you really want that slurred sound? Because you've got staccato everywhere else, right? You got this ba 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 ba, right? And here you got da da, and then here you have like these really long slurs, da da. Yeah, you really want that in a piece that is so staccato and so punchy? Okay, and then there's also the problem that by the time you get here to this incredibly effective part, you really have kind of used up the listener's sense of wonder, right? Like one part of orchestration is the kind of magic trick of amazing the listener, right? So how long can you continue to amaze the listener when they're kind of hearing the same elements being used for the same things a lot? And that's one of the strong arguments for varying the approach, right? I actually just saw a comment pop up saying, oh, I don't agree with, you know, Thomas's evaluation criteria of varying, varying parts going forwards. And I mean, here is the, like, such a strong argument as to why that is because this incredibly useful scoring writing here is being a bit, it's losing its sense of innovation right when it is the most useful, right?